Hello and welcome to Tarot Electric. I am Mary Schock. Today's episode is a recording of our latest meeting of BMore Tarot Club, and we talked all about the Chariot. So that is the card for guidance for all the listeners today. Whenever you're listening to this across time and space, so you're going to hear a lot of different ideas about what the Chariot means in your life and the energy of the Chariot, but I will just say that it is a motivational force and an energy that brings you victory in whatever you pursue. So I hope that everyone's feeling those good vibes of the Chariot, and you're gonna listen to this podcast and get so many ideas about what the Chariot really means for your life. So I hope that you all find this episode enlightening. I want to thank everyone that came out to Tarot Club and so openly shared their thoughts with us. And if you're in Baltimore, you're invited to the next Tarot Club. So join our Facebook group, BMore Tarot Club, to get all the info about the next Tarot Club meeting and anything else that I'm up to. Without further ado, here is BMore Tarot Club.
Thank you so much for being so vulnerable and sharing this with the podcast, because people that listen to this are going to really appreciate everything that you all have to share. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's something, you're doing this for everyone else. So thank you. I appreciate it, and everyone that listens is going to get a lot from it too. Okay, let's talk about the Chariot. I have a couple Chariot cards out. If anyone has their deck and you want to pull your Chariot out and share it with us, maybe we can just go around. We could go in a circle again, or people could just jump in, so it's up to you guys. And maybe before I tell you what I think the Chariot is, I would love to hear what all of you feel like the Chariot is.
Oh, wow.
Number 7. You pulled it right up.
Yeah, top. First card I pulled was the Chariot.
Popping right
Wow.
out. Hi, welcome.
And there's a message there for me.
Does anyone feel like they want to share their thoughts on, or maybe we could say hi to our new friend who just walked in.
Hi, guys.
Hi, welcome.
Hello, I'm Erin.
Hi, Erin.
How you doing?
Thanks for coming. Does anyone really want to share what they think the Chariot is or what it means for them? Was the first one? All right, the Chariot really knows. We're going to talk about it. It's number 7, so I think 7's a really holy number. It's very important. I think the Chariot card is very important in tarot, and I was saying this earlier, I think that it is one of, sometimes the most, very challenging card, because it's not really as obvious with its meaning. It's not really like pulling the sun or the Empress or something like that you just get it right away. And it in every deck, it has these symbols that seem very esoteric, and you're looking at it, you're like, oh, this must mean something very, very specific, and if I don't know exactly what it means, maybe I'm getting it wrong. So I just want, what do you think?
Well, I know that the Chariot is the sign that the Chariot is Cancer.
Right.
And I know that I've been thinking a lot about if the Chariot is, and we don't have to go into this right now, it's just something that if the Chariot is Cancer and the Devil is Capricorn, I have been thinking about how, what is the relationship between those two cards. And I also Venus is in Cancer right now, so I've been thinking about energetically there is sort of like a Chariot-like feeling.
Within like our understanding of like what Venus.
Yeah, and I mean that's like that could be anything for anyone.
That makes sense to like kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Like we were saying that like there are a lot of people who now have this understanding of who they are and they're ready to kind of just act upon how they feel inside and not just kind of give out this like this kind of like I don't want to be too much, so I'm gonna just kind of keep it inside and not really express everything when you feel comfortable to express all of yourself and just so I feel like the Chariot is like that full expression of everything, like your beauty and your values, and you can just fully express that outwardly and not really give a fuck about what people say about you.
Yeah, that definitely feels like a Chariot vibe to me. It's very outer.
It's very out, yeah.
For sure. And brave in that way.
Very, very brave. It's very, very brave.
No holding back, for sure. So do you feel like maybe, like, cosmically right now we're all kind of in a Chariot type space because Venus just did that switch and that it's, like, important? Yeah. That feels... I always like being in a Chariot space. So.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
I think it's interesting, like, personally for me, like, I just started... Like, I'm a dancer and I perform, so I've already have this, like, love for just, like, literally exuding out, like, a lot of, like, energy. So I just started stripping, and, like, that's a really fun way of, like, performing so much of my beauty and so much of my, like, elegance and so much of my sexuality. And, like, the Chariot is very much of that, like, that. It's very, like, it's still very strong, and I still have this, like, sense of, like, strength within me when I am in that space and I'm performing. So I was kind of, like, personally connecting to, like, this planetary shift to, like, this archetype.
I love that. The Chariot likes to move too, so that definitely seems appropriate. And the Chariot loves to make money, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I think about the Chariot when I get it. I'll tell you what I think. Okay. I think the Chariot's a lot about, the 7 reminds me of like an alignment. So it's like motivation and inspiration on some levels, but it's a forward momentum and an energy forward. The Chariot, it's like we have these horses, you're on this vehicle that moves, so it makes sense. I think that's a traditional understanding of the Chariot, meaning movement and progression forward, and the motivation and the energy to do that. And whenever I see the Chariot, I know that it's connected, for me, to Earth. So it's something that's very much happening in this physical reality. And it's mirroring a soul path and a spiritual path, but the Chariot's talking about something that's right here on this earth, and it's about seeing your goal, knowing exactly what it is, and then going after it. And I always say it's like you have blinders on, so you're just focused on achieving this one thing, and the path is there for you, and you have all the energy to go get it, and it feels good, and you're doing it. So the Chariot's a busy time for me when it comes up. It might mean actual travel, or even like a busy day-to-day travel, busy schedule, even a lot of meetings, or physically like moving places. But it's always busy, and I always see it as successful. That's the thing I love about the Chariot, is whenever it comes up, I'm always telling someone or myself, I don't get it that much. I wonder if I need to explore that. Okay, but it's like you're definitely going to achieve your goal, and that's what I always tell people. It's for sure victorious. So whatever you have energy to do when the Chariot comes up, you're going to get it done, and you're going to be so successful at it. So I love to get the Chariot. I think it's a beautiful card. Yeah.
Yeah. What now? Were you?
I'm good.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Please share.
All right. Well, Chariot. Like you said, the Chariot. What it means to me is victory, and also it's victory where you're not sacrificing. You're not sacrificing your morals. You're not sacrificing your morals. You're succeeding because you're very skilled at something. And also it means it can mean having a lot of like willpower. And like right here you see and then also it also symbolizes being able to balance the masculine and feminine energy. Because sometimes we have the energies trying to pull us this way or that way, and the chariot, is kind of like keeping them, in balance. And also it also means it also can symbolize getting a brand new car. Yeah. So
You're right.
now, and also now reverse, what it means to me is that not having a lot of skill at something, and also it can also mean like it's when it's reversed, depending on what's next to it, it can mean that to be careful. I've had a reading where the chariot was reversed, and I forgot what card was next to it, but I remember it was like a warning, like lock your doors, your car door, because like there's you're gonna have a car thief trying to break into your car. And guess what? 2 weeks later, someone tried to break into my car. And like and also that's what it means to me. So
I feel like I was talking to Safra earlier about how I feel like over the past couple of days I haven't had much control over. It's felt as though I haven't had much control over my movements and about the way I'm navigating. I feel like I definitely understand and feel that there is like a set destination with the chariot, but I almost feel like I kind of feel like right now is a point in time where everyone has an idea of what their destination is, but I feel as though this isn't the part of the journey where you really get to decide. I feel that the chariot is like very like ruled by I mean when I think about like the sign of like Cancer like being ruled by like the emotions, like the moon, the subconscious. I feel like the chariot is like dealing with like very like dormant like energies, like the attempt to like get the motor running from that like place of and getting. I feel like the chariot is like very. I feel like it experiences the world moving around it, but it's not moving.
Yes. I love that. Do you mind if I pop in?
No, go ahead.
I love that so much, and I have like a lot of thoughts about that. But I do think that that's a really interesting piece of the Chariot card and of the symbols that you see on it. So we just passed around the Rider-Waite-Smith card, and we passed around a Marseille card of the Chariot, and you'll see that they're very, very similar, which is like not all of the Rider-Waite-Smith cards are so similar to the Marseille cards, and in both of them, this rider is, in the Marseille, the wheels are kind of like going on the outside in this weird way that you're like, how is that? It does not even look functional, this chariot to me. And on the Rider-Waite, the chariot is literally this like solid block. It looks like stone.
Like
so
a
it's just,
statue.
yeah, exactly. And
It's like who's chilling, like actually moving.
you can also find that middle ground because you probably get pulled in different directions.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, there's a lot that the chariot says about movement in groundedness, and the way that I like to think about that also is that the chariot is connected to Earth, so the movement of the chariot is the movement of the Earth orbiting the sun, and the sun is everything that gives us light and passion and life. So our chariot path is in orbit, in worship, and working around everything that gives us life, that sustains us, and that gives us passion and light. So, so I think of the chariot as being like the orbit. How are you feeling?
Good, great. No, I just wanted to add something I noticed on your Marseille deck.
Yeah.
I really love those two little faces on his epaulets
Yeah.
there. Because one thing that I was thinking about when you mentioned blinders was that I think that's something that, like, I always think about with the chariot because, like, for me, like, water and Cancer stuff is, like, really hard for me. So to me, sometimes the chariot is about, like, it's okay to have blinders on at this moment. Like, you know, you are allowed to be ruled by the emotional choice you've made at the, like, right now, and you can kind of, you know, let the mental side go and just follow this path that you've decided on. And then also sometimes the opposite, like sometimes calls me, like maybe if it's reversed, you know, sometimes that makes me feel like maybe you have blinders on a little too much right now. Like I also have a different version of the Rider-Waite deck, like those black and white sphinxes always kind of like, you know, maybe, you know, consider whether you are being too ruled by emotions at this time. So those faces kind of made me think of, like, it just kind of felt related to, like, kind of like the angel and the devil on your shoulders, you know, like in cartoons, kind of like listening just to yourself, which is sometimes a really good thing to do, and sometimes maybe you need some outside influences. So I thought that was interesting.
I wonder if anyone has any experience with, like, because when I think about, like, the Lovers, like, obviously, like, one way of seeing the Lovers is like a twin flame sort of like relationship, or a, like, some sort of like love, like some like a love relationship. I wonder for anyone with the Chariot, does that, because I've seen it come up as like the point where there is like a synthesis between two people, and the Chariot, like the person that is like ruling the Chariot is actually like not a figure. I mean, it's still like going along with like that there is like that something else is like controlling this progression. And if I think about it in terms of like I said, like a relationship, like a lot of the time the way people interpret the Lovers, I almost see the Chariot again coming up as, like I said, the synthesis of two people. And it's like a very divine like synthesis. And I think with the Sphinxes, it's like there is like a it's hard to like, I don't want to like talk too much, but it's does anyone get what I'm saying?
I think I get what you're saying. It's almost like when a relationship is almost this whole other machine that these two people are running.
Yeah.
And it's its own thing.
Or it's not being run by them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like the destiny. It's like ruled by like a higher like force. Like this relationship is ruled by like a higher force, and it is like the job of these two Sphinxes or two people to synthesize.
Yeah, the force of nature.
And
Yeah.
there's two different bees almost, especially in this card. There's a white one and a black one.
Yeah.
And I feel like almost two different animals, two different nature, trying to be on one particular path. And I see that in a relationship, for sure. Trying to compromise.
Yeah.
But it's also going fast. And it almost like it takes a lot of mental work and willpower to try to stay in path.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe I see it how it could be run by a different force behind them.
And that could be like karmic or like
Or them trying to learn something from each other.
Yeah.
So it's meant to be.
Because they have themselves in each other. They both have the black and they both have the white.
Yeah.
But it's just like reflected. So it's like what one needs, they need from the other. And vice versa.
Interesting.
I love that. Yeah. Oh, I love all of that. And it also reminds me of how I look at the Chariot card number 7 as connected to card 17, the star. And there are even like stars on the canopy above the Chariot, and in the rider weight, the rider has the star crown. So I see 7 and 17 as being connected, and if the Chariot is our earthly experience of that path making, and we're being fueled by this other extra internal and cosmic source, like that's the star, right? And if the Lovers is like us finding relationships in this world as a reflection for our own spiritual balancing and finding harmony, as a reflection, like an earthly reflection of that spiritual work, then the Chariot would be that expression of moving with the force of the star, with that cosmic flow. This is helping me understand the Chariot as Cancer more, because that is one that I never really could get it. It never made a lot of sense to me why the Chariot was Cancer. But this is making me understand it more. I mean, definitely, like, you see the moons on the shoulders, and I'm like, okay, but the idea of the Chariot, like, rolling with this emotional, moon-centered cosmic flow makes a lot of sense.
Like a very a collective subconscious kind of force.
Yeah, because it's got the water behind it, similar to like the High Priestess.
Yeah.
Right.
It seems awfully close to the water too. Like
Oh yeah.
there's 4 wheels. Like they're gonna be.
Like-
He may have just crawled out.
Just crawled out.
Like,
Yeah.
Just like,
Yeah.
Here I am.
Yeah.
Like that little crawfish.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For me, the Chariot doesn't come up that often, but when it does, it's usually reversed. And for me, it's a card of like maintenance and realignment of earthly things. So for me, it'll come up when I have been I haven't been watering my plants or like doing my dishes every day, and all these like really mundane physical things that when I do have a routine going, that's when like my engine's running and I'm like, all right, now I can do this.
It's very much so like your routine is your vehicle to get to your destination.
Yeah.
And I think that it's like I feel like a lot of the Chariot is about sustaining something that powers you and motivates you to move forward.
It's for the long haul.
Yeah.
Not just like a sprint.
Yeah. And it's something in like it changes the routines.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely looks like he's modified. He's pimped his Chariot. For
Yeah.
sure.
Like
with
really
the like
fine.
curtains
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the decorations on the front.
Yeah.
There's also a way of breaking down, and maybe some of you work with this, the major arcana into groups of 3. So if you separate the Fool, because we're all the Fool, and then you get 7 pairs of 3 cards, or 3 different levels. So there's 1 through 7 is like the first grouping, and they're supposed to be kind of your worldly experience or that first level of consciousness awakening, And if you think about it, 1 through 7 is dealing with very like relatable things a lot of the time, like Empress. Like, to put it very, very simply, like Empress, Mom, Emperor, Dad, the Hierophant, community, you know. And then once you start getting to that next, so the 7 and the Chariot is like the alignment of all of that, the synthesis of all of that work that you've done, and like a knowing who you are on this earthly world in relationship and reflection of everything that you've been through. And then that next level is 8, strength, and then that starts the next. It goes strength through temperance, and then temperance to the world is like that last one. So I would have to do the whole working to see, because they'll group the Chariot with the 3 below. That's so an interesting way
That's
to
really
look at the
interesting.
major arcana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the way I'm like.
Right.
That's
Lovers.
like the way that I guess is helping me right now to like see the progression, or I've been thinking about the progression in the sense of
To go from lovers,
the cards that
Chariot,
are like
strength.
surrounding, and then I'm thinking about like the devil being like the sort of anti-chariot, or like
Who also sits on a stone.
yeah. So I don't know if anyone has any. I find it helpful to like think about the card and its opposite, or like its shadow. So I guess I'm wondering if anyone has any like, what do you think the relationship between the two are, the Chariot and the devil?
They're both prime numbers, 7 and 13. Where the Chariot, there's a lot of control, and then in the devil, I think of as the illusion of not having control, thinking that you're trapped, when really
That's really good.
that way out. And maybe it's almost the imagery kind of mirrors like the people chained with the devil, or like the sphinxes. So maybe in that situation, you feel like somebody else is running your life, and you're like, oh, I feel like I'm the horse pulling someone else's carriage. But that's just an illusion, because really you're still running your own thing. Something's clouding your vision, though.
Because in here, like, you don't see that they're being tied up or anything. Like, it just looks like they're just being loyal and just sitting right in front of the Chariot.
Well, they always have the choice
Yeah.
to release themselves from the chain. I mean, the devil, to me, most of the time, it represents there's some kind of like drug addiction going on with the person, you know, and alcoholism. And if the Chariot, like, depending on like the person and the question they asked me, if it came up, it would be like, all right, you know, you have a lack of willpower. Like, you can't stop. You're having a hard time walking away from your unhealthy behaviors, and you're lacking that willpower. You know, and that's how I would interpret it. Everybody has their own way.
I feel like the devil like always exists like somewhere in our lives. Like
Yeah.
that like sort of, it's like you have like a chariot ride, but then you also have like a ride with like the devil.
Well, no, I was just saying in general. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how a lot of readers would interpret it. You know, that I've come across, that it usually represents like unhealthy relationship, unhealthy behaviors. Just being like, addiction problems and stuff like that. So, but it has so many different meanings. Those are just the common ones that I've come across. So.
The Chariot ride, yeah, like kind of feels like the soul, like the soul actually being driven by the body, and then the devil is kind of actually symbolizing like the body itself and how much impact it's having on every move that it makes, and every breath and every step and every thing that is dying as we're existing in these bodies.
Plus, if the devil is like in maybe the most like beautiful or loving way that I can try and look at the devil, like our animal self and our shadow self, so our instinctual self, And I mean, in relation to the Chariot, that kind of makes me feel like if we are the charioteer, right? If we're like up there and in control and have our animal self in the Sphinx's like balanced, like loyal, like ready to go, but in the Chariot and the Devil, you can see like a similar configuration of characters, but the Chariot makes me feel like I have a lot of like good, healthy control, and maybe like a really motivating, inspiring relationship with my own animal self. Where in the Devil, I might feel like that animal self would be like taking the charioteer's place and like ruling over me, and like and taking away like my sense of control, which is illusion, right? Because we always have the Devil, but we also always have our free will in the Chariot. I see the Chariot sometimes as a little bit related to the Magician, especially once we start talking about will. The Chariot, they have a similar like wand in their hand in the Rider-Waite deck, and to me a little bit of a similar energy.
Yeah, Magician has the same position as the Devil as well.
Yeah, totally. As above, so below, but like, what are you?
And that was the same, like, the cards that I got when I was like, giving myself a rating. I was like, should I be a stripper? Like, is it something that I'm like, I can like spiritually maintain myself and still kind of like do this? And then I got those two cards and I was just like, yeah, because I have this ability. Like, I have the tools and I'm physically capable of doing this as much as like I can use my what you were saying it earlier, like just your animal self to have this job, and like you can balance these two.
Totally.
And I was just like,
Which is like me working at the last job I had, I was working at Grand Central. It was like like a gay bar here, and it felt like it was a very like carnal atmosphere, and I was like, it satisfied for me, like it satisfied. It felt in a way that it was like I was almost like taking care. It was interesting, like how I felt like I was taking care of like my more animal like nature by having that job. Like it was very, like I found a home for that side of me through work.
Yeah.
But then I realized like later that job in a lot of ways like didn't feel. I wanted something in favor of it. I wanted something that felt more clean, and more like that felt more clean. But it was an interesting experiment in like having a job that was like that satisfied that part of myself.
yeah, this is like this experience is an interesting like experiment to see how I'm capable to use these powers to like get money.
Yeah.
Or like physically like keep myself moving, like my body is moving, and like it's still sharing and it's still like giving.
I have a question. Are there any other cards, either in the major card arcana or the minor arcana, that remind you guys of the Chariot, or that you feel like are connected, or even feel like an opposite?
There's one of
No
the
pressure.
sword cards.
Was it on the boat?
Yes.
The Six of Swords.
Yes.
Yeah,
But in a less
that's interesting.
feeling way.
Because it's travel,
Yeah.
right, and movement in that
And
same
it
way.
Six of Swords getting the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah, I vibe with that. I think of all the sevens, that's how I read So whenever I see a 7, anything, pentacles, cups, whatever, I think about alignment in the Chariot and also its relationship to the star. It's kind of, in the Rider-Waite, it's kind of a trickier situation because some of the 7s are really weird. But the 7 of Swords actually, I think, really does vibe with me on that. And the 7 of Swords in the Rider-Waite, we can find it if you guys want, or maybe you can remember it. It's like this person who's holding these swords with their hands. They've got their fingers on the blades, not even on the handles of the cards. Yeah. And there's this like encampment behind
he's
them. He's like sneaking away. Yeah.
With his furry little boots.
Yeah.
No, it's funny. So now I remember, like, when I got my reading, like this was like years ago. I remember that was a card right next to the Chariot. She was like,
really? The Chariot reversed.
Yeah, she was like, yeah, you need to be careful because you're gonna have someone's gonna try to steal your card. So you need to lock all your doors.
The Chariot reversed and the 7 of Swords, I can definitely see how that would mean. Lock your car doors.
Lock your car doors. Yeah.
But I love the 7 of Swords overall, and I find it one that people can often be very scared of or have very, like, not even scared of, but have negative feelings towards, but I love it, and I think it's about following your own path.
Exactly.
You're
like
saying, I
yourself.
don't need, yeah, exactly. So when I combine that image with the Chariot, then it makes me feel like, oh, this person isn't, like, trying to steal from this camp. They're just taking what's theirs. They're taking what they got, what they can get, and going and following their own path. And it may or may not be successful, but they're gonna try it.
Yeah. That's how I feel about school. Like I'm just here to just kind of like take what I need. Chariot my way.
Yeah. I would got 7.
Yeah.
I think about, I also think about, I think it's interesting how it's like, the way I guess I'm looking at it is like, with thinking about the cards that surround it, and then you talking about it being a position of being surrounded by, it's like a seat.
Yeah.
Because I know, and I think, I can't remember like specifically, but there's like some sort of like concept in like physics about like a particular seat, or I don't remember what that was. I read like this like book that was tying together art and physics like a while ago, and there was something about this concept of a particular seat and being able to look at in space, or like being able to look at like all of the like planets, like some sort of like divine like concept or something like that.
Wasn't 7 the number of the known planets, the visible planets? So in ancient astrology it was 7, right? I mean, 7 is so important. 7 major chakra. What else is 7? You know, a lot if we think about it more. But those are the 2 that I think of.
Days of the week.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
7 days of the week.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have like, I don't know, any thoughts on anything?
Thing I was thinking about with what everybody's talking about with the Chariot is the concept of momentum, and that and this seems to relate to a lot of the other cards. If Temperance is about adaptability, Chariot it's about plans that you made in the past, and you're just seeing them through, and you still have some ability to control it, but you don't have the fine tuning, so you really have to be careful of things that come up in the short term. It's more difficult to react to like quick changes.
It's not flexible. Yeah. Yeah.
But if you are on a true track, then you roll over any obstacle.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, but then Temperance is that next. It's definitely a balanced place, whereas the Chariot is like very active, but it's not grounded in that same way. Are there any this is going to be multifaceted, but maybe like gods or goddesses, mythologies, herbs or crystals, or maybe even like a pop culture reference. Like, what does this card remind you of? In any of, is that like bringing anything up?
Cinderella.
Oh, really?
Because of the
fairy godmother
Yes.
and the chariot ride.
I never thought of that. That's so cute.
I think of Apollo pulling
Yeah.
the sun, and he's got like the big star.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the idea of like daily routines for me, since this card is so much about routine. Just like doing what you got to do every day,
Yeah.
getting the energy to do it again.
Yeah, that fits in with my sun orbit thing. I didn't make that up. That's probably where it came. I read it somewhere. I forget where. They were probably talking about Apollo. And Apollo is connected to the magician too.
I was just gonna say I'm pretty new, but my deck is goddesses, so it's Rhiannon writing on
Rhiannon.
Right. I like don't. I'm like not super familiar with it yet, so I like talk to them to like explain something.
Yes, please share.
Yeah.
Because I know that goddess name, but I honestly cannot tell you about her right now or what she's
Yeah.
about.
So it's a 7. It's labeled as movement traditionally in the Chariot. The British horse goddess Rhiannon is said to appear to her followers riding an unearthly white horse. In this way, Rhiannon symbolizes the unceasing force of movement that pulls all of life along with it. Dressed in royal robes of gold, Rhiannon is also accompanied by 3 magical birds. Where gods and goddesses from the happy other world where gods and goddesses lived. The ethereal song of these birds was believed to have the power of to lull the living to death, restore death to life, and heal all sorrow. Rhiannon's name is derived from Rigatona, which means great queen goddess. In an earlier period, she was known as Epona. Many statues of her have been found, most of them depicting her with the mare on one side and a bundle of grains on the other. This image symbolizes movement, eventual end of great culmination at the harvest.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing the horse goddess. That's perfect.
I think that also works with the idea of victory, because I think her story also has to do with like her son is stolen away and she's blamed for it. So for years and years, she's sort of like punished, and when someone comes to visit the court, she has to carry them in on her back. But then eventually someone goes out and finds her son, and she's like, I was right! So it's like the what you had been saying about like things coming to fruition and plans that you had been put in place a long time ago. Victory. This card also reminds, when you asked about other cards, I think of the Four of Wands, because to me they kind of have like a similar structure with the 4 posts and of the Chariot. And if you put them together, to me it almost looks like a continuation of the same scene with the city. And with the parade of people and that sense of life as a joyful celebration, the Chariot to me kind of takes that on the road. It's like, let's take this show on the road. And
Can I see that?
he's got to have that exuberance.
Yeah.
Like that.
I get those paired together a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, they do look they go together nicely when you hold them up. And it reminds me that the Chariot also reminds me of the 6 of Wands, which is that in the Rider-Waite deck, it's the character riding in on a horse surrounded by people, and they have the crown of, the wreath, symbol of victory, and that's a classic card. If I got the 7, if I got the 6 of Wands and the Chariot in one spread, I'd be like, whoa, I'm about to be praised, or you're like, oh, definitely a good sign for whatever you're working on.
This episode of Tarot Electric has been brought to you by the Moon in Pisces. Okay, so that was BMore Tarot Club's talk on the Chariot. Please let me know if you have questions or thoughts or ideas. You can find all my contact info on my website, maryshock.com, and you can be my friend on Instagram, where you can send me a message. I'm at Tarot Electric, and you can join our whole group on Facebook, BMore Tarot Club, and you can even post a picture of the cards that you pulled for yourself that day and say, hey, these are what I think these cards mean. What do you think they mean? And it's a community for people that want to be more tarot every day. I also would love to see you all at Golden West this Sunday, August 13th, from starting at 9, going till about midnight. We're going to do tarot and cocktail night at Golden West in Hampton. So I'll be reading tarot, and I'll be there with Rain Alexander. Come out, get a tarot reading, get a cocktail, have some fun, meet some witchy friends. And if you need anything from me, reach out and let me know. You can find Tarot Electric on iTunes, where you can rate, subscribe, and review. Okay, much love, peace, and blessings to you all. Good night.